Hi, Justin Aquino here. Thank you so much for joining me. Hope you're doing well. I want to talk about assertiveness. I'm a public speaking and communication coach, and for many of my clients, what they're really focused on, above and beyond presentation skills or public speaking, is just general assertiveness in the way they communicate and the way they show up in their professional working lives. So I want to share with you 5 major things that you can do to improve your assertiveness. And keep in mind, these are universal tips and tactics. They may not apply all to you in your particular case, or some of them may apply in different ways. So these are just general concepts that I tend to emphasize with people. Number 1 is volume. Make sure that you speak loud enough. If you notice, people that are assertive tend to speak with very good volume. They're able to get people's attention just purely through the loudness of their voice and the way that they speak. So if you're having a hard time gauging how loud is too loud, and oftentimes people that don't speak loud enough, they tend to not have a clear sense of what is reasonable, what's too loud, what's not loud enough, what's too quiet, right? So a couple things you can do is, number 1, if you notice that people tend to ask you to repeat yourself, that is an indication that you're probably not speaking loud enough, okay? So if that's something that recurs for you, that's an indication. Second indication is if it's a meeting situation, a conference call, and everybody is, let's say, creatively sharing their ideas, and you go to say something, or you start making a point, and then someone else jumps in front of you, because they literally didn't even hear you, right? That indicates that through your volume, you're not taking up enough mental space, enough emotional space. I'm gonna get to physical space next, but that's an indication that you're just not as present, and you're simply not as assertive in that situation as you need to be, okay? So those are some indications as far as loudness and volume. This is something that is very uncomfortable for a lot of people, especially quiet people like I used to be. We're in a pattern with our vocal cords of speaking at a certain frequency and at a certain volume. So in order to push yourself to the next level, it's stepping outside of your comfort zone. But it's something that really, really makes a big difference in terms of not just your overall assertiveness, but also just purely being heard by other people. Because if people can't hear you, they can't hear your ideas, they can't process your ideas or what you have to contribute. That's going to undermine your assertiveness in the long run as well. Second thing is to take up physical space, okay? You'll notice that assertive people are not ashamed or not afraid to take up sufficient space. Now, you don't want to be obnoxious about this, but you want to make sure that you're taking up sufficient space for you, and you have a sense when you're interacting with other people, or if it's a kind of crowded situation, let's say at a networking event, or at the office, or in a meeting, you can feel your own level of space, what's necessary for you to feel comfortable. And if you are not taking up enough space, that's something for you to kind of, again, push your comfort zone a little bit, because that does make a difference psychologically for you as well as for other people. Third is expressiveness. This is something that almost all assertive people are very, very adept at, either naturally or as a learned behavior. If you are just simply speaking your ideas in a very plain, matter-of-fact, monotone way, that is usually not going to be perceived as very assertive. So you want to be more emotionally expressive in the way you share your ideas. Don't be afraid to use your hands. Don't be afraid to use your facial expressions. Don't be afraid to be a little creative in the way that you speak, in terms of your word choice. Maybe use more interesting language. Incorporate some unique props or tools in the course of your presentation. I have other content related to how to incorporate tools into your presentation skills, nonverbal techniques. But these are all things in terms of your body language and your nonverbal communication. These really make a big difference because it really gets people's attention. A lot of times when we are not as assertive as we need to be, we just simply are not as expressive. We're just saying words, but we're not actually expressing anything beyond the words, right? And so if this is something that happens to you, you want to push your comfort zone a little bit to get a little bit more expressive, because that is going to make a big difference in the way you're perceived and in your overall assertiveness. The fourth thing is talkativeness and chattiness. You'll notice that people that are very assertive tend to be very verbal. So this goes hand in hand with being expressive. This goes hand in hand with also taking up space. As you can see, they're all connected, right? Volume, projecting your voice, making sure that you are taking up sufficient space, making sure that you're being expressive, and yes, making sure that you're being talkative. Now, some of you are watching this thinking, I'm just not a talkative person, I'm introverted, I'm more quiet, low-key. I get it, I understand, I'm an introvert myself. I am not a huge fan of small talk. You know, the fact that we had a snowstorm 2 weeks ago and someone's grandmother in Minnesota, you know, ate a plate of beans or something. Couldn't care less about that, right? But what I realized at one point is that small talk and chit chat serves an actual purpose, right? Because by engaging in small talk, I'm able to initiate a relationship with someone, initiate a conversation, and then that conversation and that relationship can later on lead to more interesting and engaging interactions and more interesting exchange of ideas. So the talkativeness is important. It also, I was having a conversation with a client the other day who's a consultant about this, and I made the point to him that it's also about marking territory, so to speak. It's about sending the signal through talkativeness, through chattiness, that you are someone to be paid attention to. When you talk verbally, you're taking up mental space in the meeting or in the group or in the team. When you're not talking, when you're not verbal, people don't hear your voice, so it's almost like you're not as present as other people. But when you're talking and chatting verbally, you're taking up a certain amount of mental space in their minds, and that makes a big difference in terms of your overall assertiveness and how you're perceived by them, right? This is all part of building up your presence. Keep in mind, assertiveness is not just about volume, although it's certainly about that. It's not just about the way you express yourself when you speak, although it's certainly about that as well. But it's just a general philosophy and a general mindset in the way you show up and your overall presence in a professional setting. The fifth and the last point that I want to share with you is reaching out to others. So again, along with this theme of going above and beyond just the verbal communication itself when it's your turn, so to speak, to actually speak, go above and beyond that and think about your overall lifestyle. How do you show up in the organization? What is your networking situation? How present are you on social media? How vocal are you over email or over different mediums that people communicate? Maybe there's internal mediums that people communicate in your organization. Reach out to people, initiate relationships. This is all part of building an assertive mindset and an assertive frame in the way you exist in a professional setting. Because a lot of times what I see, and this is very frequently what I see with clients or students that are not very assertive, is they keep to themselves. And they don't just keep to themselves conversationally in real life, in person, but they also keep to themselves just in general on social media, over email, over text. They don't really reach out to people. They don't initiate conversations. They don't ask people questions. And the great thing about this, if you're an introvert or if you're a little bit more low-key or shy even, is that you can leverage social media and you can leverage these non-IRL, non-in-person media for your advantage to initiate more assertiveness, right? So you don't have to go completely 100% assertive in person just yet. You can begin the process by reaching out to people on LinkedIn, email, phone, and so on. You can do it at your own pace, and that's a great way to build up your overall assertiveness, okay? So, to recap, volume, making sure that you're speaking loud enough so people can hear you. Number two, taking up physical space, sufficient physical space without being totally obnoxious. Number three, expressiveness. Making sure that when you speak, you're speaking in an engaging and expressive way, that you're actually channeling some emotion there. Number four, talkativeness. Making sure that you are being chatty, that you're engaging in small talk and chit chat. Again, it may not be the most enjoyable activity in the world, but it really makes a difference in terms of the way you're perceived and your overall presence. And then finally, reaching out to people, initiating relationships, initiating conversations, not just staying in your little world, but actually initiating with other people. Okay? So I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below, reach out to me. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this. What are you struggling with when it comes to assertiveness? Did these tips seem like they would be beneficial to you? How about other people in your organization? Anything that you observe on your team or your subordinates as far as assertiveness and assertive communication skills? I'd love to hear from you. So let me know. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.